in the app and get the full story with bbc.com/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.
This is BBC News broadcasting in the UK and around the globe. I'm Geeta, Guru-Murthy. Our top stories. Gary Lineker to return to Match of the Day as the BBC announces an independent review of social media guidelines and apologises to audiences. After the collapse of the US Silicon Valley Bank, the British government and the Bank of England facilitate a private sale of its UK arm to HSBC after the American Federal Reserve introduced emergency measures to shore up the banking system over the weekend. The UK Prime Minister's in California to discuss defence and the potential threat from China with leaders of the US and Australia. China's National People's Congress concludes as the new premier tries to calm the business community after the recent crackdown on the tech sector. Junior doctors in England will walk out on strike for the next 3 days, calling for a massive pay increase to reverse 15 years of below-inflation pay rises. And a great night for the eccentric multiverse film Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which has won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director and Best Actress for Michelle Yeoh.
This is proof that dreams dream big and dreams do come true. And ladies, don't let anybody tell you you are ever past your prime.
Hello and welcome to BBC News. Well, we are bringing you breaking news this hour on the ongoing dispute between the sports presenter Gary Lineker and the BBC. In the last few minutes, we've had this statement from the Director General of the BBC, Tim Davie. It says, "Everyone recognises this has been a difficult period for staff, contributors, presenters, and most importantly, our audiences. I apologise for this. The potential confusion caused by the grey areas of the BBC's social media guidance that was introduced in 2020 is recognised. I want to get matters resolved and our sport content back on air. Impartiality is important to the BBC. It is also important to the public. The BBC has a commitment to impartiality in its charter and a commitment to freedom of expression. That is a difficult balancing act to get right, where people are subject to different contracts and on-air positions and with different audience and social media profiles. The BBC's social media guidance is designed to help manage these sometimes difficult challenges, and I'm aware there is a need to ensure that the guidance is up to this task. It should be clear, proportionate and appropriate. Accordingly, we're announcing a review led by an independent expert reporting to the BBC on its existing social media guidance, with a particular focus on how it applies to freelancers outside news and current affairs. Well, the statement from Tim Davie goes on to say the BBC and myself are aware that Gary is in favour of such a review. Shortly, the BBC will announce who will conduct that review. Whilst this work is undertaken, the BBC's current social media guidance remains in place. Gary is a valued part of the BBC, and I know how much the BBC means to Gary. And I look forward to him presenting our coverage this coming weekend. Well, that is a statement by Tim Davie, the Director General, and Gary Lineker, as part of that statement, says, "I'm glad that we have found a way forward. I support this review and look forward to getting back on air." So that statement has just come out in the last few minutes. These pictures were from Gary Lineker at his home in London over the weekend after this huge crisis, frankly, that the BBC has found itself in. Our reporter Charlotte Gallagher is with us. Charlotte, it was obvious that the BBC Director General was trying to calm this down over the weekend. There is not an apology to Gary Lineker, and Gary Lineker is not deleting his tweet. but he is going to be back on air this weekend.
And that is the resolution that the BBC wanted. Tim Davie made it very clear at the weekend that he wanted Gary Lineker back on air. He called him the best sports broadcaster in the world. A couple of key points from the statement by the BBC. Of course, Gary Lineker